Good evening, race fans, and welcome up to the Palmetto State for round number 5 of Season 9 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series. Tonight, for the first time in league history, drivers will be taken to the Myrtle Beach Speedway, my local short track that unfortunately I was never able to catch a race at before it closed down, but of course, thankfully it is preserved here on the iRacing.com platform for everyone to enjoy. This track was opened up back all the way back in 1958, and it only just closed down in, I want to say, August of 2020. So this was a pretty recent development with the Speedway. Of course, I'm saying that in 2023, which is a little bit crazy to think about. It almost 3 years have passed, but Myrtle Beach, quite the interesting little short track. It comes in at 0.53 miles in length or 0.86 kilometers, and it's not a symmetrical short track. Turns 1 and 2 are a little bit more narrow than turns 3 and 4. It's definitely not in the same manner that a track like Darlington is, but it is something that you can notice a little bit when you're out there on the speedway that it's not exactly right. And I think tracks that aren't exactly right are the kind of tracks that have a little bit of charm to them. That said, before we take it down trackside and get ready to go racing here tonight, if you are interested in joining the ASRC Oval Series or any of other Attrition's series that they put on, be sure to head to www.asrcracing.com or head to @ASRC on Twitter, or simply look up Attrition Sim Race Campus on the iRacing League directory. Every Monday night, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, they put on the Oval Series, which is currently 100-lap races with the street stock. That said, qualifying just about in the books here tonight, so how about we take it on down trackside and get a look at our starting lineup here this evening. Not a very big field making it out to the track here tonight. Only got 5 cars registered. I'll tell you what, they are 5 cars driven by some very fast and very competitive drivers. So I still think this is bound to be a pretty exciting little Monday night short track race. Starting out on the pole in that number 99 machine for dropping bombs racing, that's going to be Mr. Tyler McRae. Is outside in the 145, that's going to be Mike Sukup, also for dropping bombs racing. Back in P number 3, that's number 85, Mr. 4-time Oval Series champion of Brian Sabelski. Back in P number 4, driving that black, blue, and yellow number 93, that is league admin Jason Gardner, rolling it off in P number 4. Finally, rounding out this 5-car field here tonight, that is the number 10 of Steven Rex, also driving for Droppin' Bombs Racing. Looking like Mr. Rex might have had a little bit of a spin in his qualifying attempt. That's going to be starting him all the way back at the back of the field. But I'll tell you what, during open practice, those top 3 drivers were within a couple thousandths of a second of each other. So whatever these 3 dropping bombs racing drivers have under their belts, it is a pretty fast and pretty competitive setup. So we definitely will be having to keep an eye on these drivers and see just what they have to show for this 100-lap event. Now I'll tell you what, it may only be a 5-car field, but we do have some very interesting stories throughout. Tyler McRae, Travis Sukup, Jason Gardner, the drivers making up the top 4, or 3 of the top 4 of this race are 1, 2, and 3 in the championship standings. So these 3 drivers are going to be putting on a heck of a show here tonight. But iRacing.com pace car is already off the racing surface. We are going green flag racing. here at the Myrtle Beach Speedway. A bit of a late throw of the green flag by Mr. Barney, the flagman, but we've got everyone rolling, and Tyler McRae off to an early lead. Jason Gardner going to be falling back a position in turn number 1. Steven Rex pretty much immediately securing the position in that number 10 machine, but we got to remember, Rex wrecked out of his qualifying attempt. So it is entirely possible that if he uses this short run speed that he has in this number 10, that another mistake could be seen. We'll have to keep an eye on them as he tries to get around Brian Sabelski. You can see him getting a little bit loose off the corner there, but not too much to really cause concern quite yet. And looking down into turn number 2, that pit exit here at Myrtle Beach Speedway is covered in turtles. If you get your tires on that, you will spin, you will damage the underside of your car, and it's entirely possible that you will damage your engine as well. So, bit of a unique characteristic to this track that I believe is only really shared by the Oxford Plains Speedway. And definitely something these drivers are going to have to keep their eyes on, because it's literally a physical barrier keeping you from going down on the apron, which is something that we have seen some of these drivers try and do, especially later in these races, to try and get any sort of longer run speed. And I think that Mr. Rex might have actually just hit one there. You saw his car get a little bit upset in turn number 2. So we got rolling the right direction, but definitely not the way you want to be opening up your race. Travis Sukup looking to try and use the lower line and get around McRae. McRae up in the lead of this race now. And he was actually using a bit of a higher line, which is not something we really see in these short track races, especially very early on. That time now, Sukup looking to try and see if he can't use the high line. Having a little bit of a connection issue there, but it's not going to be what it takes to make the pass. Nose to tail as they come across the line, though. It's just a matter of Sukup setting up the overtake here, because he definitely has the speed to do it. It's just a matter of getting the execution down pat. McRae a little bit loose out of 2, so it looks like all 3 of these drop and bomb racing cars, they have some incredible speed under their hoods, but it does not look like they are driving the most stable of machines, because I've seen all 3 of them get a little bit wobbly out of the corners. That said, looking at the lap times, they are all setting some lightning fast speeds. And Tyler McRae and Travis Sukup, their best laps put down during the actual race, both are about, call it 2, almost 3/10 of a second faster than the rest of the field. But it looks like that might all just be in short run speed, though, because looking at the actual lap times they're setting now, they're actually fairly similar to that of the rest of the field. So it definitely looks like the cars tonight are tuned to have the short run in mind for the drop and bombs racing entries. McRae getting into the outside wall there just a little bit in that number 99, not doing him any favors, but Sukup is falling back just a little bit, so not the end of the world for that number 99 machine. Now coming on into this race, looking at the standings, Travis Sukup does have the lead over Tyler McRae by just 11 points. That is a matter of just a couple of positions in an actual race, so if McRae wants to get past Sukup, he's going to need to get this win. And at least in the early run, it does look like he's starting to set himself up to do that, as a little bit further back, side by side into turn number 3. That is Sabelski and Rex. Rex actually going to make the pass on the high side, overtake that 85 of Sabelski. That's going to bump him back to P number 4. Starting from the back in that number 10 machine, Rex, so far the most improved driver of the race. He's knocked 2 drivers down for position, and now It's just a matter of can he make up the 2.8 second deficit to catch back up to the rest of his teammates and duke it out for the race win. 15 laps in the books, though. Still a long way left to go around the speedway here tonight. Things are not said and done. Certainly not anywhere near it, especially as there may be potential for a pit stop on the agenda here tonight. Rex again looking like he made a little bit of contact with the curbs there down in turn number 2. Not enough to upset the car, but it did look like he might have had just a little bit of a nudge in that number 10 machine, and a little bit of impacts like that can add up fairly quickly. So you need to make sure that that's not something that you're getting too dependent on, because it's too risky, it's too unreliable. Admittedly, the street stock's a little bit tankier than some of the other short track cars out there, so they're not as likely to get absolutely ruined by those turtles as some of the other cars that we race here at the Myrtle Beach Speedway, but still not something I as a driver can really recommend doing. So we will have to keep an eye on Mr. Steven Rex and see how that ends up working out for him. Up in the front, still nose to tail for the race lead, McRae and Sukup keeping it under a blanket without any trouble. Both these drivers have a whole lot of speed under their hoods, and it looks like Sukup may be looking to try and make the overtake down on the low side. Sure enough, McRae gonna wash up the speedway a little bit, get a little bit loose up on the high side that really just has not been rubbered in whatsoever. That's going to make Mr. Travis Sukup our new race leader in that 145 machine. Sukup is currently coming into this race both as the points leader in the championship standings, but also the driver with the most wins under his belt. Tyler McRae picked up round number 1 of the season back at the Nashville Fairgrounds, and then Sukup every race after that, one after another in that 145, which is made all the more impressive by the fact that Sukup, while having a whole lot of podiums throughout the past couple of seasons, he just never had the luck to work out in his favor to pick up a win, and now he's got 3 in a row just like that, and potentially could be looking to make it number 4 here tonight in that 145 machine. That said, we still have a pit cycle to go through and a whole lot of racing left to do. Between Sukup and McRae, both these drivers know they have a whole lot of speed. They both probably have the same setup under their hoods. So it may just come down to how these two drivers are able to manage their tires over the longer run of this race. Because ultimately, it's not a matter of how fast you are in the first 24 laps. It's a matter of how fast you are on the final lap. As we cross lap 25, getting us quarter of the way through this race, that's something that these two drivers are going to have to start thinking about, because there's not really any way to recover if you happen to just burn all of the good off of those tires. And look around the speedway, you can see these two drivers have built up a pretty massive lead between themselves and the rest of the field here tonight. 3 seconds back for their teammate of Steven Rex, who started all the way back at the tail end of the field. Then it's going to be the 85 of Brian Sabelski back in P number 4. Call it about 0.8 of a second back from Steven Rex, and then Jason Gardner another second back from the 85, rounding out the field here tonight. Rocking a different paint scheme from normal here tonight. We saw him for the past couple of weeks running the orange and black Gulf entry, and now he's driving out a paint scheme that, while is new to this season and new to the broadcast, it is not a paint scheme that is new to Attrition Sim Race Campus, because this was actually the paint scheme that Jason and I ran together as teammates back in Season 2 of the Oval Series, all the way back in 2021. We both ran this identical paint scheme together, except my car had the black part as blue and the blue part as black, so we had it inverts. But I'll tell you what, race fans, this car that is being run by that number 93 Jason Gardner, a little bit of a nostalgia trip. Brian Sabelski taking back his position from Steven Rex. It does look like Steven Rex potentially could be losing a little bit of speed on those tires. He's been really pushing with everything he's got to try and catch back up to his two teammates up in P1 and P2. And now that Sabelski's gotten back around him, and you can see him washing up the speedway on, that's definitely not something he's doing intentionally. It does look like Rex may have pushed his tires too hard and just got too much heat built up into him and too much rubber scraped off. You can see a little bit of damage to the right side of that car, so it looks like he might have had a little bit of a scrape with the outside wall at some point. Definitely not how Rex wanted his evening to go, and you can definitely see him slowing down because Gardner suddenly is in the picture here now too. Gardner is closing the gap on Rex quite handily here tonight, and sure enough, Gardner just like that right to his tail. Looking at the lap times, Rex still set a faster lap time last time by, but just barely. And as we cross the line again, let's see how these update. Sure enough, Steven Rex set a time that was a pretty considerable amount slower than the whole rest of the field. So it does look like Rex having some trouble keeping the 10 up to speed. And only 35 laps into this race, so it's not unlikely that we will see him taking tires down when the pit cycles come through, because these drivers will need fuel to get to the end of the race. But going from all the way back to the back, all the way up to P number 3, and now just he has an anchor strapped to the back of that number 10 machine. We're going to have to see, will he manage to hang on to his tires any better when he puts on the second set? Should he even put on the second set? Because after all, putting on the alternate set of tires is entirely optional. He's not under an obligation to do it. It's just, with how he's handling here tonight, I would not be surprised if that is what ends up happening for the driver of that number 10 machine. Speaking of drivers with tire wear really putting a damper on their parade, Mr. Tyler McRae in that number 99 machine, he was nose to tail with Sukup pretty much the entire race up to this point, and suddenly now he's a full second and a half back from our race leader. So McRae has lost a whole lot of ground very quickly. Let's zoom out the camera here. Now that doesn't look like a whole lot, but that is a hard deficit to make up for the driver of that number 99 machine. So Sukup currently kind of stealing the show here tonight in that number 145 machine. We will just have to see how pit stop cycles out, because we have seen the pit cycles completely shake up the outcome of these races, completely throw off the field. But with how things are looking right now, Sukup is looking very good to try and make this win number 4 under his belt, especially as we begin to close in on the halfway mark. Sitting comfortably back in P number 3, though, the driver that is not changed positions really much at all. Of course, everyone has changed positions so far this race, but the only driver that is currently running in the position he qualified right now, that number 85, Mr. Nihon Tiger Brian Sabelski, more than likely Twitch streaming his perspective of the race right now. So if you want to get an onboard perspective and a little bit of insight into what goes on in the minds of these ASRC Oval Series drivers, definitely be sure to go check out Mr. Brian Sabelski at twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger. You know what? Let's actually go on board here with the number 85 of Mr. Brian Zabelski. Let's get a little bit of an idea of what he is seeing heading into turn number 4. Looking like he's getting a little bit loose into turn number 1. The car's sliding just a bit. You can hear the tires squealing down under there in that number 85 machine. But he's still setting some pretty decent lap times, so still definitely got to keep an eye on this driver and see if maybe as we cross into the second half of this race, if he will have anything to give to our race leaders. A little bit further back, hands have changed yet again. Steven Rex going up high. Jason Gardner going to be bumping himself back up into P number 4, and that's going to put Rex right back where he started this race off, back in position number 5. Had an incident in qualifying that caused him to start this race back at the back of the field. Wasn't able to set down a lap time, and he pretty quickly gained his way back up to P number 3, but now here he is battling it out with Jason Gardner for position number 4. As we get closer and closer to the halfway point, we will just have to see, is Rex potentially playing the long game? Because it's not impossible that Rex actually has a little bit more speed under his hood than we are aware of, and he's just waiting to use it. Or he could definitely be ruining those tires though. So bit of a 50-50. We will just have to see how Rex's race ends up playing out. Either way, these two drivers currently the closest cars on the speedway by a pretty long shot, and Jason Gardner getting loose off the corner, heading up into the outside wall. Little bit of a scrape on the right rear quarter panel. That's going to allow Rex to make up a little bit of ground. You can see both cars getting a bit loose on corner exit. Both these drivers not really having their cars handle the way they want them to be. Rex, again, a little bit loose off the corner, but sure enough, looks like we got two drivers down on pit lane. Tyler McRae, Brian Sabelski, our race leader, still out there. But that is going to have two cars down on pit lane here tonight. So we will have to see what the strategy is. Tyler McRae coming down into his pit box. Will he be taking tires? Sources say yes, definitely right sides for McRae. And McRae's heading back out there. Sabelski, on the other hand, Sabelski did not take tires in that number 85 machine. So definitely very interesting. And getting a little bit on those turtles on pit exit. So that's definitely a very interesting play for Sabelski. Does not look like he took any tires, but it doesn't look like it did much to save him time either. Looking at the pit stop times, both drivers spent 44.7 seconds on pit lane. McRae got off 5 thousandths of a second faster than Sabelski did. And looking at the pit stop times, Sabelski, like actually in their pit box with work being done to their cars, Sabelski only saved half of a second, a little bit less than half of a second. So it looks like potentially Sabelski, while he did forego taking tires, he might have had a little bit more fuel put into his car than McRae did. A little bit of scrape out against the outside wall for the 85, not doing him any favors. Currently, the battle between Gardner and Rex still the closest on the speedway. 56 laps in the book here tonight. 2 of 5 drivers have elected to take their pit stops so far. Gardner and Rex on the other end looking like they're going to be staying out and trying to stretch their tanks as far as they can. After all, one of the ways to get bonus points here in the ASRC Oval Series is to lead at least one lap. There's additional bonus points for leading the most laps, which of course is going to go to that 145 of Travis Sukup, as he's already led the most laps here tonight as we pass the halfway point. But Gardner and Rex, both these drivers could potentially be angling to try and pick up the bonus point for at least one lap led. And as Travis Sukup makes his way down to pit lane, Gardner could be looking to try and make that happen. Sure enough, Gardner staying out on the speedway, Rex staying out as well. Gardner being scored as the race leader that time by. It does look like he was able to get the pass, so he should be picking up a bonus point here tonight in that number 9 to Theory machine, but he is going to be coming back around the speedway just to try and confirm it. And sure enough, there Mr. Gardner goes. Officially being scored as having led a lap, so that will be a bonus point under his belt. So that leaves 2 more cars to come down to pit lane, and that also puts Steven Rex in a little bit of an awkward position because McRae has already passed Rex. So once the pit cycles go through, Gardner and Rex now can both officially consider themselves as being lapped. Unless a caution comes out, both these drivers will be a lap down after the pit cycles go through. So they will still be able to battle with each other, but their chances of getting on the podium or battling it out, even potentially for the lead, may be dashed by how these pit cycles are coming through. But still, we can't comment one way or another until these two actually go down to pit lane and get that all sorted out. Gardner trying his best to just hold on to position right now, but he's got Sukup right behind him, and Sukup is gunning to try and get back up to McRae. Pretty considerable gap between the two, but as Sukup unlaps himself, that's now setting himself up to try and battle it out for the race lead. And sure enough, Sukup that time by set his fastest lap of the entire race with a 20.39. Now Jason Gardner content with his run. He's gotten all he can out of that 93. He is going to be coming down to pit lane. Steven Rex, on the other hand, electing to stay out in that number 10. Rex potentially also trying to posture himself to pick up a lead lap bonus point, and he's going to be getting that as he comes around the speedway for the 65th time here tonight. Rex will be scored as leading lap. Checking in down on Gardner, it does look like Gardner will be taking 2 tires here tonight. Will he be making it 4? No, he will not. 2 tires on the side of that number 93. And that just leaves Steven Rex, who is still out on the speedway. Despite all odds, 67 laps in the books. We are 2/3 of the way through this race. And Steven Rex still has fuel in the tank of that street stock somehow or another. And he's staying out again. Rex is really pushing this car incredibly far. It almost seems like he might be taking a page out of Johnny Bell's book of just really stretching the fuel as far as possible and trying to get positions based on just unorthodox fuel strategy. But ultimately, with these pit stop times being about 45 seconds to 44 seconds actually on pit road, unless a yellow flag were to come out, there is no way for Steven Rex to make a pit stop and stay on the lead lap. It is just not physically possible. So I think that is where Rex is finding himself right now, is just running around on the speedway, big time fuel saving, hoping that somehow, some way, a yellow flag might get thrown so that he can make a safe pit stop without being scored a lap down. Because sure enough, McRae and Sukup, they're on the same lap as him and only 15 seconds back, so he is guaranteed to be put a lap down if he comes down to pit lane under green flag conditions right now. Looking a little bit further back, the battle for what will be the lead once Rex pits is getting a little bit spicy again. Travis Sukup, Tyler McRae, once again, pretty much nose to tail. Sukup setting blisteringly fast lap times, consistently setting lap times nearly 0.2 of a second faster than McRae. So McRae might just be having to play the defense game here and see if he can hold on to this position somehow or another. Because Sukup, he is pushing this car incredibly hard. And that might be exactly what McRae wants. He might just be trying to get Sukup to be aggressive, to really push the car, and maybe, just maybe, it will burn enough rubber off the tires and get enough heat built up for him to be able to hold on to the lead. But sure enough, just like that, side by side into turn 1 and head down into turn number 2, Sukup is going to make the pass on McRae. Still side by side again, heading down into 3 and 4 though. McRae falling back just a little bit. And as they come to the line, Sukup is going to be scored in the lead of this battle. McRae sending it deep down low, going to be trying to do the crossover. And it's got him enough to be right up against him, but it's not enough to hold on to the position. These two drivers really duking it out, and somehow Steven Rex still is on the track with 75 laps in the books. He has still not come down pit lane, so the fact he still has any fuel in that car is really impressive in that number 10. But I think we're bound to see him coming down in the next couple of laps unless he has just really done some monumental fuel saving, which isn't impossible. It is entirely feasible that Rex could stretch the fuel enough to make it to the end of this race. But he has to worry about Sukup and McRae closing the gap, and they are currently 12.5 seconds back. That is going to go away really quickly. So Rex, you can see him. Let's ride on board with Rex for just a second, because I want to hear his engine noises. I want to hear what he has going on inside of that number 10 machine. And sure enough, riding on board with Mr. Steven Rex, you can hear him. He's not pushing the throttle all the way down, and he's just lifting and coasting through the corners. He's pushing in the clutch to stop engine brake. Steven Rex is on maximum fuel save mode right now, just trying his best to see if he can't stretch the fuel tank in this number 10 machine all the way to the end of this race. You could hear it. That is not what a street stock engine sounds like running at full capacity. Try and exchange it, say, for what's going on with Travis Sukup. That's a much louder roar coming out of the driver who is pushing this car with everything it has compared to the driver who is trying to baby it all the way to the end for these final 20 laps. And once again, Sukup building up the gap from McRae. McRae falling back just a bit, not completely out of the picture, but he is losing ground. He's setting 0.2 of a second slower lap times than Sukup is right now. So now Sukup has himself a bit of a new mission. He either pushes this car as hard as possible to make up the 9.5 second gap he has on Steven Rex and try and overtake him in the next 19 laps, knowing that if he pushes himself too hard, McRae could catch back up. Or, alternatively, he can play it safe, he can just run his race and be it at a comfortable pace and see if Rex doesn't run out of fuel in the next 18 laps. So both these drivers having to take little bits of gambles in their own respective ways. And we will just have to see. It's pretty much just a matter of waiting and seeing how they end up playing out. I'll tell you what, Travis Sukup, he is closing the gap fast. He is setting lap times, call it about half a second faster than Steven Rex is right now. And you can even see Sabelski. Sabelski in that 85 might be having a similar idea as Rex, knowing that things are going to be playing out as they are. 15 laps to go across the line. Rex is going to have to pick up the pace just a bit if he wants to keep Sukup behind him. Sukup is going to have this gap closed in the next 15 laps. If he continues to push himself at the pace that he is going at, I don't think Rex will be able to maintain the lead, but he could potentially find himself finishing on the podium of this race, which, coming from last place, is still a feat in of itself. Sabelski going to be going down low, getting around Rex to unlap himself. And Jason Gardner just behind as well. Gardner also going to be looking to unlap himself and get around that slower car, because he is still battling with Sabelski for position. So Gardner and Sabelski currently actually the closest battle of the speedway, with Sukup having built up as much of a gap as he has. So it's just a matter of Sabelski getting around Rex. Rex going to pull it up high and let him by. The last thing Rex needs right now is to find himself in an actual battle with another car. He is just letting Gardner go on by, let him battle it out with Sabelski, and just try and hope that he has the fuel to make it through these last 11 laps. But Sukup has closed the gap to 3.5 seconds, and it is closing quickly. Rex is slowing down in that number 10 machine. Still not coming down to pit lane, but Rex really is running on the last little bit that his car has as we make it 10 to go. Big double high five up in the air. And the question that is burning in everyone in the stands, everyone in the broadcasts, and everyone on the track's mind: will Rex be able to pull this off? 9 laps to go as Rex comes across the line, currently looking at the battle for 4th between Sabelski and Gardner. By far the two closest cars on the track. Gardner catching up to Sabelski. There's going to be a bump. And just like that, the yellow flag is going to come out with 9 laps to go. Everything that Steven Rex has worked for these past 92 laps has just come to fruition. Rex can comfortably come down to pit lane now and be on the lead lap. Sure enough, he's going to do it. I would not be surprised if we see Rex taking all 4 tires, taking fuel to make sure he gets to the end of the race. Rex could very easily have this with just how he has played his cards here tonight. Rex needed a caution to come out, and a caution is exactly what he got. Gonna keep an eye on the driver of that number 10 machine just for a moment. Gonna see what his strategy is. Gonna be definitely taking 2. Tyler McRae also down on pit lane. Gonna zoom it out and see what these 2 drivers have in mind. Sure enough, it looks like just 2 tires is going to be the play for Rex. So McRae leaving pit lane. It looks like McRae just took a splash of fuel to be safe. Rex still down on pit lane. Sure enough, now he's coming off there. Will he be able to beat the base car? Yes, he will. What a way for this race to unfold. Before we get going back green, though, let's take a look back at that incident between Sabelski and Gardner here. Heading down into turn number 3. Gardner and Sabelski, a little bit of a nudge from the rear end from Gardner. Gardner slams on the brakes, and it's just enough to send him spinning. Then Sukup has to go to avoid. Sukup spins a little bit, but manages to hold on to it. Let's take a look back. Let's get a look at that incident riding on board with Steven Rex here. Our race leader following these 2 cars that just unlapped themselves, going down into turn number 3, and just a little bit of nudge. What a scary sight that is to see, and heads up driving by Rex to not get involved in that instant. Because as much as he was praying for a caution, as much as that massively helped him out and played into his strategy perfectly, that could have gone incredibly wrong if it had gone any other way. Let's get one more view here. Gonna ride on board with Jason Gardner heading into turn number 3, getting a bit of an onboard view of what happened. And I lied, we're not actually doing that anymore because the green flag is back in the air. And Sukup comfortably in the lead of this race in a call it about 4-car battle for second. Steven Rex, Tyler McRae duking it out. Rex, now that he's got that pit cycle worked out, he can really push this car as much as he wants. And a little bit of trouble. McRae sideways manages to hold on to it, but that's going to cause Sabelski to check up, and that's going to allow Gardner to catch back up to him. Will he be able to close the gap in the next 5 laps is the big question, though. These 4 cars all pretty much under a blanket, a little bit more spread out now as we've gotten up to speed. High 5 up in the air, though. 5 laps to go for these drivers to get themselves sorted out. Steven Rex just set his personal fastest lap of the race, and it was actually faster than the fastest lap set by Travis Sukup. So Steven Rex just set the fastest lap of the race for any car on the track. He is really hoofing it to try and get back in the lead of this race and have everything he worked for on that pit strategy come out to work out for him. Closest battle on the speedway, though, between McRae and Sabelski. Sabelski in that 85 just trying to get the nose under McRae. But McRae not going to be making it easy for him. Little bit sideways through the corner for both drivers. Sabelski going to pull down. Will it be enough to get alongside? No, it won't. Just not enough to get the run in that number 85. Going to be trying it again, going down the front stretch. And he gets his note alongside him. McRae up to the high side. Sabelski down low. 2 laps to go. And Sabelski finds himself on the podium for just a brief second, but side by side into 3 and 4. Nearly contact between the 2 drivers. White flag up in the air. Heading down into turn 1 for the final time. Diving it down low, trying to cross him over side by side down the backstretch. Now Sabelski finds himself in the unfavorable position. Will he be able to hang on to it, though? Sabelski gonna roll it home in P number 3 as the leader of that battle. And Travis Sukup gonna be finding himself winning a 4th race in a row in the 145 machine for Dropping Bombs Racing. What a race that was. I don't think anyone had that in their cards for what was going to happen in the last couple of closing statements of this race, but sure enough, a little bit of chaos and a whole lot of drama is what Myrtle Beach Speedway is definitely known for. I'll give Sukup just a moment to burn it down, do a little bit of celebrating, and then we will call up these drivers for an interview and get their thoughts on what the heck just happened in those last 20 laps. I'll tell you what, I don't know if he intended to get it in victory lane there, but that was quite the drive by Mr. Travis Sukup. But we will be back in just a moment, race fans, with interviews with your top 3 finishers, so don't go anywhere, and we will be right back. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back, and Mr. Sukup, welcome back up into the booth for the fourth time in a row now. You've got it done here again at the Myrtle Beach Speedway. How are you feeling now that you've got another win under your belt here tonight?
Pretty good. It was a lot of fun. I think I got really lucky again.
Sometimes that's how the cards fall. I don't think anyone had it in their cards for there to be a caution in this 5 car event. How are you feeling when you saw that yellow flag coming out in those last, I want to say, 10 laps roughly?
I couldn't tell if I liked it or not. I couldn't tell if I was going to catch Steve, the leader, or not. So I'm not sure which way would have helped me better.
Well, either way, it managed to work out for you. You had some incredible speed under the hood of that 145 machine. You were setting lap time after lap time pretty much for the entire race that just no one could compete with. So you may call it luck, but there was definitely a whole lot of speed under that car here tonight, and you definitely are deserving to be up here again. Let's see,
Uh,
where are we even going next week? We're going to Thompson next week. That is certainly a track. How do you feel about Thompson? Is that a track you like at all?
it's one of my. I like it definitely. It's a pretty good track, I think. I usually am pretty decent there, but I just can't figure out how to pass.
Well, that makes one of us because I am absolutely terrible at Thompson, but I look forward to seeing you out there next week and seeing someone that's actually capable of driving the track, driving it, because Lord knows I can't. Of course, before I let you go and celebrate your fourth win here in season 9, the microphone's all yours. Anyone you want to thank on the side of that 145 for getting you up here?
Well, it's always the same group of people that seem to help, and we have a lot of fun doing this, and that's what it's all about. And I thank the ASRC because gives us a place to have a lot of fun, man. We appreciate it, and we thank you for what you do.
Good deal. Well, as always, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, thank you. We'll see you then.
And it does not look like we have managed to dial up the fuel strategy man himself, Mr. Steven Rex, so we will be jumping right on back to P number 3. Brian, you're up here on the podium yet again. That was quite the unexpected ending to this race. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here tonight?
Well, I botched that multiple times during the race, so to walk away third, I don't feel like I earned that, but I guess you gotta kind of take what it gives you. Just too many mistakes tonight. I ground myself too hard on the tire run, and I was having a lift there at the end, and then that's when Jason caught me, and his racing incident was when he tagged me. But those things happen in short track racing. I've seen a lot worse. But yeah, just let me go in there, kind of get a chance to reset things in a way, and uh, be able to kind of drive back up to the front. And Tyler was good racing with him the last couple laps. I know he was on older tires, but yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda on some things. I feel bad for Steven. He was up there. He's running great. I don't know if he would have made it on fuel, but he must have been hitting the number that he needed to hit to save enough. I knew I did the math and I was like 4 short. So that's when I changed my strategy.
Well, even if you're not necessarily happy with how the race went, you still got yourself up here on the podium, and that's always a good thing. And there's always next week. We're not even halfway through the season yet, and
Hmm.
heading into the Thompson Speedway, a track that seems to be kind of controversial in every short track community I'm a part of. How are you feeling heading into round 6 of the season?
I like Thompson. It's a fun track. Hopefully, we'll have some more folks out here next week. I know the holidays, we had some folks who were traveling and who were otherwise preoccupied. And it's a paid track that always kind of dampens the numbers a little bit. So hopefully we'll get some folks back out at Thompson, and yeah, it would be nice to have a nice good run next week too. So we'll see.
And that sounds like a good plan, and that also really puts my time that I've spent on iRacing into perspective, because if I'm going to be honest with you, Brian, I had no clue that Thompson was a paid track.
It's free track. It's free.
It's free. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I thought I was going insane for a second there, which is entirely possible.
Myrtle Beach is.
That's
why I'm, Myrtle Beach is a paid track, and it really doesn't get raced outside of. I think the biggest thing that comes here usually is C-Fixed, so it doesn't tend to be as popular.
Yeah, they're doing my home track dirty.
We need to next season. We need to have Monza Oval on here. Make it happen.
I like if
B-Fix can run it this week, so can we.
Exactly.
Full throttle. It's our plate track. Full throttle all the way around. Smash into the guardrail on the reverse course. Do it for America, even though it's in Italy.
I like the way you think. All right, chat. We're starting a petition. I'll give it to the admins of ASRC at the end of the season. We're gonna make this happen.
God, they're gonna ban me.
Oh yeah. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves with taking street stocks to Monza, which I really think we should now. The microphone's all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Anyone you'd like to thank for getting yourself up here on the podium for another week here?
Just the folks for Jason and all them, for everyone here at ASRC for hosting. Of course, fine folks at McConey Setup Shop for all their hard work on all things setup, whether it's short track stuff or bigger track. It's a good place to go. Good team. Of course, everyone hanging out in Twitch chat. Hey, yo, how's it going? That's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out as always, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep. Catch you later.
And it does not look like we are going to be able to get Mr. Rex called up for an interview here tonight, which is very unfortunate, because I need to know what is going on in the inner workings of the mind of the driver of that number 10 machine. But unfortunately, we will have to be saving that for another evening, it looks like. Before we sign it off for the evening here tonight, let's take a quick look down at our race results as they stand so far. I can't see anyone getting any sort of penalty here tonight, so basically consider these to be official. Taking home his fourth win of the season, going to be the 145 of Mr. Travis Stukup, with Steven Rex in the 10, taking on just the biggest brain fuel strategy we have seen since the likes of Johnny Bell was here back in season number 7, taking home P number 2 in the 10 machine. Third place going to go back to 4-time champion Brian Sabelski in the 85, who has officially started the movement of taking the street stock to the Monza Oval. If we end up having to do that broadcast at some point, let's just make it clear for the record here tonight that is the fault of Brian Sabelski. Back in P number 4, going to be the 99 of Tyler McRae, who looked like he had second place wrapped up and done deal with all race, but unfortunately that late race caution did not play out the way he was hoping it for. And finally, rounding out the field here tonight, going to be the number 93 of Mr. Jason Gardner, bringing home P number 5. But that's all we got here tonight from my hometown track of the Myrtle Beach Speedway. Of course, next week we will be heading up to the Thompson Speedway up in, I want to say, Connecticut? That sounds right. Sure enough, Thompson, Connecticut. So, gonna be heading out to the Northeast next week for a pretty different track from the ones that we've been through for the past couple of weeks. So, definitely be sure to tune into that one. Same day, same time, Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's definitely bound to be a fun one. Thank you all for coming out and supporting the stream and support the league. We appreciate it here at Attrition Sim Race Campus. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a good evening, race fans.